The Kenyan shillings depreciated. Even last week it went as far as 90 shillings to the dollar. The impact this has had on the horticultural export sector?
Yeah, I think it was quite an expected jump. I mean, it was quite a big jump, even by normal trends. So 90 was quite something. We have had overall, of course, a positive effect of the shilling weakening, because exports always, as you know, benefits from a weaker local currency. But I think it's getting to the margins whereby it's also starting to hurt exports.
Right.
And the major reason is that the export sector of flowers, fruits and vegetables in Kenya, or fresh produce, also imports massive amounts of products which are for the inputs. Like, for example, all the fertilizer is imported, all the seeds are imported for the vegetables, all the agrochemicals are imported, and also the packaging material. And therefore, because of that, since we're importing, of course, in Forex,
Right.
it means that we're having to pay much more.
I mean, you're saying that obviously the exports benefit from a weaker shilling. You can get more product sold internationally. The question is, are you supporting that with volumes? One of the biggest problems in Africa is that we just don't export the numbers that are required.
Well, we certainly have the volumes on flowers, no doubt. We are doing 33% of the total rose market or flower market in the EU, so that's quite some volume. 33% of the total exports of flowers into Europe, and also on vegetables, especially green beans, what they call French beans. I think we have the volumes of those two. We do not have the volume yet on the fruits like avocados and mangoes, so that bit I agree we are unable to take advantage of the weak shilling, but certainly on the flowers and on the vegetables we can. However, at this time of the year, it's a low season for Kenya going to Europe, and the reasons are obvious. Europe is in summer, and therefore there is full production now in Europe for vegetables and also flowers, and therefore they tend to import much less from countries like Africa at this time of the year, even on the best of times. And therefore, because of that, we are not able to take full advantage of the weakening shilling. Actually, the shilling is weakening precisely because we're not having huge forex inflows from horticulture, for example, into Kenya.
And Stephen, what about prices? We know that the tea sector has been doing particularly well because the prices for tea are stable, they're looking good, and then supported by a weaker currency. So your projections for horticulture and fresh fruits going forward into 2011, how do you expect to perform?
Well, we are certainly having also favorable environment in terms of price with regard to vegetables, the whole range of them, and also fruits, but not for flowers. I think flowers have been struggling for some time, and the major reason, of course, is because it's a luxury good, and I think the markets are still jittery because of the global economic situation in Europe. I mean, Greece story certainly doesn't help a lot, and also other markets. So flowers, I think that will remain a challenge because the prices are not great. We had a good Valentine, but Mother's Day and other days were not so good. Not so good with Mother's Day, but Valentine was good. Easter was not so great as well in terms of prices. But for vegetables and fruits, I think the prices remain quite stable. So we think this year we are projecting between 8 and 10% growth. Depending on the weather, we will need a bit of rain to stabilize the water situation.
I'm glad you mentioned the weather, because this has been a big bugbear for most exporters, agricultural exporters. Fears of this looming drought, and then compounded by inflationary pressures coming to the fore, and you've added the cost of imports as well. So is 8% growth a realistic figure?
If we receive reasonable amount of water in the next 3 months, I think that the rivers should be able to sustain some good production, and therefore starting October, September, late October, we should be able to supply quite a lot, and that's the beginning of our ice season. If that does not happen, and at the moment it's pretty dry across our country, if that does not happen, then for sure we will not have the volumes, the supply volumes, to take advantage of the situation, and therefore we might go back to 5-7% kind of growth like we had last year, which of course is not so exciting.
Let's look beyond this year and just general strategies to improve on Kenyan agricultural exports. People are talking about diversification, for instance, value add. You know, don't just produce the tea leaves, produce the tea. Similar things said with coffee and others. Others are saying use the soil more productively. So when you're not in a horticultural harvest season, use the soil for something else. What sort of strategies for diversification are you looking at?
Yes, very correct. In fresh produce, unfortunately, value addition in terms of processing is not normally very realistic. The big point here is that the biggest value on fresh produce is in the fresh product. Like, for example, when you take green beans, they sell for the highest amount of money when they are fresh, not when you can them. The moment you can green beans, you lose value per kilo. For example, flowers, they will still be best when they are fresh. Of course, you can do bouquets and stuff like that, and that obviously a value add. So for vegetables and for flowers and also for fruits, we tend to have the highest value when it's still fresh. Now, we think that going forward, we'll need to do more value addition, but more end product production in Kenya, for example, like multi-mixes of vegetables and bouquets for flowers and stuff like that. And then also intensification of land use. I agree, during times when we are in low season, we normally tend to produce maize. There's a lot of maize production, especially corn production on fields that are normally for vegetables, also for rotation, and also much more intensification of use of water, basically being a bit more conservative than is the case now.